The city of El Paso, calls for help are taking hours to be answered. And it all comes down to one thing: not enough police officers. Our chief investigative reporter, Genevieve Curtis, joins us here in the studio to show us what happens when every second matters and how public safety may have been compromised.
El Paso police are facing a critical shortage of officers. Tonight, we are getting to see a side of El Paso police we haven't seen before. We spent 16 hours on patrol to see firsthand what officers are up against. And we are hearing from those who called for help, only to learn just how he has.
El Paso Police on emergency operator at the scene.
Hi, this is AT Security. I'm calling to notify you of a residential burglar alarm. And she's really upset and panicking and crying. And she says she's home by herself and the back door is open.
So we will be sending an officer out.
The alarm company at one point had, when it initially happened, had told her to hide.
This is my daughter's there. Please get somebody there. Police officers dispatched her. You don't.
Not yet.
Can you do it?
Sir, I'm advising the officers of what's going on so they can be aware. We do have several emergencies going on in the same area right now.
I was furious. This is an emergency at my house.
As soon as we get an officer available, we'll send them out there, but we do have several emergencies going on in the area right now.
So, if my daughter was being murdered, it wouldn't matter.
I just want my child to be safe. And I was scared. I was crying.
I'm calling to see if any officers have made it to 851.
No, ma'am, not yet.
I'm on hold with a customer now, and she's real frightened.
I just don't have the body to send to that call because they're handling calls just like that. They're the same amount of officers did 20 years ago.
I've been waiting here for 3 hours.
Just stay safe, okay?
Where are the police?
Answering other emergencies right now.
They're going from call to call to call to call to call every day, every night. It's nonstop.
They're answering right now life or death emergencies.
I could have been dead by now.
It's not uncommon that you wait 6, 7, 8 hours for an officer to get there and do a report. And my personal opinion is unacceptable.
We need more police officers on the streets.
Scary.
It's scary.
Negative, yes, Dale. It's over by the freeway.
This is what El Paso police are up against every day. A department with the same number of officers it had 20 years ago.
They're running frenzy right now.
A little more than 1,000 officers on the force in our growing community.
With El Paso's growth, I'd say a minimum of like 1,700. I've asked for a conservative number of 300.
I sat down with El Paso Police Chief Greg Allen for an exclusive interview. For the past 8 years, the chief has asked City Council for more officers and warned it could come down to this type of shortage.
Someone calls the police, that call should be answered as timely as we possibly can make it. And that's where I think the department is failing because we're not able to do that.
A shortage that may be hard for the average El Pasoan to see until you have to dial 911.
They want a police response. And they don't find out that need or our needs, the city's needs, until they actually place that call one day.
Chief Allen tells me he wants every call answered in a timely manner, but he admits that isn't a realistic expectation these days.
What do they want as a police response? I, for one, if you want a time figure, I think 30 minutes should be max. Shouldn't have to plan out your day like you're waiting for a Time Warner.
KFOX 14 Investigates dug into the FBI crime stats from 2015. Most cities with at least 500,000 people have 29.8 officers for every 10,000 residents. El Paso has 14.
For that person making that call, it's a high priority call.
El Paso police operate on priority levels, calls ranging from priority 1 being the most severe to 9 being the least. Because of the officer shortage, the lower priority call, the longer you will have to wait.
And that's where I think we're dropping the ball.
It's something KFOX 14 Investigates saw firsthand while riding along with police. Officers are running from high priority call to high priority call. Calls that sometimes demand resources from an entire command.
We have 2 major incidents. There's 28 calls backlogged, and they're just going to keep pending.
There are times at night, there's 4 units work in certain areas of the town.
That means it can take hours for mid-level calls.
I deserve to be safe. I pay taxes.
Sherry Ryder says the break-in at her home while she was out of town showed her this serious shortage.
I'm a mom on a mission now. I want police officers in my city to protect my child and everybody else's children. I don't need water pads and swimming pools. I need policemen.
It took 3.5 hours before an officer arrived at the Ryder's West Side home. City leaders say they're committed to getting more badges in the street.
We don't want to hear these kinds of stories, but when we do hear them, we want to face them head on and be accountable to them.
But how did we get here? Part of that can be traced back to when El Paso earned the safest city designation.
It's been a double-edged sword.
A designation which applauds the great work of our officers, but cuts off funding options.
So now you're working off your own budget. You know, we used to have cops grants, which we don't have anymore because we're a safe city.
Forcing the city to pay police almost entirely through taxes.
The community should ask itself, what are you willing to pay for? Because it's expensive. It's nothing cheap, and I'm cognizant of that.
Plus, years of a down economy kept the department from adding to its ranks. But the union also points to years of prior city councils and city leaders not putting safety first.
You know, it was always, oh, we're #1 safest city, let's kick the can down the road, we're fine. Now we're playing catch-up.
KFOX 14 Investigates discovered in the last decade the city paid for 3 studies. One study showed by the year 2010, El Paso should have had 1,800 officers. A 2007 study showed the city needed to hire 500 officers on the spot. That didn't happen.
My chief, since I've been sitting in this office for 8 years, has pushed for academies every year.
I think City Council needs to do a much better job.
City Manager Tommy Gonzalez says he recognizes the need.
I think it's unacceptable. We've also authorized more overtime.
To help, the city is now tapping into new technologies, adding cameras in different corners of town. And he says they've talked about drones.
So I think we've given all the resources that we've been able to give the last 2 years, and I think we need to do more.
There is now a 10-year plan in place that would hopefully add 30 officers a year to the ranks.
Something the city's going to have to get used to as the growth builds.
KFOX 14 Investigates spent 16 hours on patrol with officers and found while they face a shortage of manpower.
We have a vested interest in keeping El Paso safe because our own families are here.
There's no shortage of dedication. And City Council authorized 2 80-person academies to start next year, but the chief explains it takes about 2 years before a cadet is ready to patrol on their own. We will continue to bring you stories about this shortage right here on KFOX 14. Reporting in the studio, Genevieve Curtis, KFOX 14 Investigates.